foods that impact your digestion. Certain people have like Crohn's disease, or some people might have IBS, which a lot of that is through anxiety and stress. But these foods, or certain foods, could be really inflammatory to the gut, really hard to digest, and that could create bloating, constipation, gas, all sorts of other issues. You might also be having certain foods that are also going to be impacting digestion, and then that's going to impact the bioavailability and nutrition within the body as well. So you want to be really aware. Everyone's unique, right? Certain people might have certain, what's the word I'm looking for? Where you're, like you can't have fish, for instance. What, allergies, right? All of us, well, I don't have any allergies, thankfully. Not yet anyway. Some allergies do come up later in life, but all of us have our own allergies, same as our own gut biome and intestines and stomach and what have you that determine the food that we can eat. So you need to be aware of that as well, because that can impact digestion, and then that could also impact gut control, like the ability to actually suck in and pull your gut in is also determined by how much bloating and constipation you have in your gut as well. And then that has other issues, back issues, spine issues, because that could create inflammation in the spine as well. So there's so many factors as to why nutrition is important. We actually did a whole entire hour and 10-minute inflammation podcast and strength and motion show. So if anyone wants to look into that, check it out. It's one of our most popular podcasts. And digestive health, the same thing. So nutrition and performance. So energy production in general. So if we look at energy production just in our day-to-day life, but then we're also looking at our cognitive focus. So our ability to actually focus on a task, which is surprisingly important, because it also determines the quality of how that task is done. I'll use the gym as a reference because obviously I own a gym and we're training in the gym, but your ability to focus on the task at hand in the gym determines on how high quality or how productive you are in the gym, right? So if you're low in energy, low in mood, that's going to determine your performance in the gym as well. So the mind gives out before the body usually. The body is actually quite resilient, it's quite capable, but most of the time it's our food or our brain that's impacting our brain, right? The food that's impacting our brain that's impacting our ability to do something within the gym. Does that make sense? So like 70% of neurotransmitters is from the gut to the brain. So our endorphins, our serotonin, our dopamine, all these things are actually mostly established within the gut and then sent through to the brain. And 90% of messages from the brain to the gut is actually the gut telling the brain what to do. So the brain is very much, I guess, a victim or controlled by the gut. Make sense? The gut is the boss. So I call it the second brain, but most of the time the second brain actually determines how the brain is functioning, how the brain works. Make sense? Then we have recovery and adaptation. If we're beating ourselves at the gym, or who here is stressed just in general? Oh, cool, that's good, nice. I'm stressed. I'm stressed all the time. I kind of like it, but I don't know if it's like an addiction to stress. I don't know what's wrong with me, but that's okay. That's why I own a business, woo. Recovery and adaptation, right? So if we're stressed, we have busy lives, and then we're trying to move our body, build strength, build pliability and flexibility and mobility within our body. If our body isn't fueled correctly for that, it could be dehydrated, it could be stiff, it might not have the ability to actually do what you're asking of it. And a lot of that is determined by the food and the hydration as well. So we want to make sure that that's covered, and obviously recovery. If you're having DOMS, which is the delayed onset of muscle soreness, if you're having DOMS 2-3 days out from a training session consistently, that's normally a sign that your recovery is not solid. You shouldn't be having DOMS all the time. You know, if you're going through a cycle or a training program, maybe you have like 2 or 3 weeks towards the end as you're starting to peak towards your training where you might have some sort of like DOMS for a short period of time. But if you're constantly sore 2-3 days out from a training session, it's either an intensity issue within your training, not training with the right intensity, with the right frequency. It could also be you're lacking in sleep, or on most cases, it's hydration and nutrition that's impacting your ability to recover from that training. Make sense? It's very common for people not only to be malnourished for their everyday life, but when they add in training on top of that, they're even further malnourished, right? We're now trying to move the body and use more energy, but now we haven't even changed the way that we eat. And it's pretty common for people to go, oh, I'm just going to do training, I'm going to do cardio, but not increase their calories, not increase their protein. And then the body could go into something called gluconeogenesis, will break down its own muscle mass to then create fat, because it thinks it needs fat for energy because it thinks it's not going to get food. Make sense? The body's a machine, it's habitual, and so if it believes it's not going to be provided with food, it will find a way to create energy within itself, and in most cases it's breaking itself down for that. instead of breaking down external food. Make sense? Super important. Metabolic flexibility as well. Your metabolism, although there's so many factors to why the metabolism is what it is, right? Lean muscle mass, age, sex, etc. However, it can adapt. Our metabolism changes, and a lot of that is determined by the energy output, what we do on a day-to-day basis, also the food that we eat. So certain foods, or the amount that we eat and the timing of our food, can really impact our metabolism. And so we could get to a point through time where our metabolism will increase, we could eat more food, we could train, be leaner, be happier, and perform better. Who wants that? Cool. Me too. I always want more. So that's probably why I'm so stressed. Also helps with stress and resilience. Good food at the right time will allow you to move into more of a parasympathetic state, the rest and digestive state, and relax and actually heal. Food is so important, and I love my food rituals, my food times, which Josh will dive into later, and the importance of routine. So mental well-being and emotional well-being, stable mood. So if we dive into all the hormones and all the impacts of food itself, it makes sense that the food that we eat is going to impact our mood, right? Like if we're insulin resistant, so we're not processing energy correctly, our thyroid and sex hormones are out of whack, we're going to have low energy, we're not going to be moving oxygen or blood through the system correctly, we're going to be in a bad mood. Then there's also certain things for micronutrients or things that help with the gut, like neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, which could also, as we all know, impact mood, anxiety, depression, because antidepressants are serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, adrenaline. So they're like the main factors as to what's in like an antidepressant, and then depending on the individual, they'll kind of mix and match and play around with it. But the issue with those, the baseline changes, right? And so eventually it'll come a point we might need more, and that's the issue with pharmaceutical stuff eventually. Discipline and self-trust. It's probably the biggest one as to why I do what I do. Coming from my history and my background, discipline and self-trust pretty much kept me alive. Like honestly, it kept me from going to not being here anymore to being where I am today. It feels like a 15-year journey from when I was 19, when I really like got my shit together. And I'm 34 the end of this year, next month, holy shit. And it feels like it was only yesterday where I was like, you know what, I'm done hating myself. And it wasn't a factor of like looking at myself in the mirror and be like, oh, you're a piece of crap. And obviously there's a certain aspect of that. But for me, I don't say it's the same for everyone, but a lot of the people I work with, I'm a hypnotherapist, life coach, counselor, etc. Most of the time, including for myself, it's because what we're seeing in the mirror, the lack of self-trust and the lack of discipline that we've put upon ourselves, right? Like we tell ourselves day to day of how we don't want to fall into this habit and how we want to change these habits and move into this path and do this and do that. And then the more and more we tell ourselves that and don't show up as that individual, and food's a big one, for myself and a lot of people I work with, that's what we're looking at in the mirror. It's not necessarily the physique, it's not necessarily, to a degree, in most cases it's the personality, the characteristics, or the behaviors that we're judging of ourselves. Does that make sense? So it's really important that we gain that discipline and self-trust through these behaviors, which is why I love health and fitness, because I think it's the easiest ROI, the easiest return on investment. You spend like 3 to 5 hours in the gym, you be disciplined with your food, eat 80%, 80, 90% whole foods, organic foods, clean foods, 10 to 20% might have a little bit of chocolate, might have a Magnum, you know, I like my dessert every single day, I try and get some dessert. With that balance, I'm gaining discipline and self-trust while also improving my health, my well-being, my fitness. I look better in the mirror. I'm happy being shirtless and about because of many reasons, right? So I think that's probably the biggest reason why we want to go on these journeys. Also reduce cravings and emotional eating. Certain foods, right, sugar can release dopamine, right? So if there's certain foods that we're eating, we're also getting a dopamine high from it as well. Normally we match it with something like we'll watch TV or we'll do another habit and then we eat food with it, and now we got like the dopamine from the habit, dopamine from the food. There's a form of addiction that comes with that. And then also the sugar within the gut. The gut bacteria will get addicted to that sugar, and then now that wants to be fed with that as well. The other issue with those certain foods is they're low in nutrients. And so the body is still craving food, so it doesn't feel full. And so once we start to separate and eliminate those type of foods, then we'll reduce cravings, we'll reduce emotional eating, we'll be able to ground ourselves and balance our emotions and our gut and our body to be happy and perform better. And then alignment with identity. There's a lot of like traditions, you know, if you're Italian or if you're Greek or what have you, there's certain like cultures surrounding foods. There's also trying to identify what that identity is for you and your family and the people around you. Maybe if friends, you go out for a drink and you have a barbecue. There's all these things, like people that work, guys that work in certain industries, and they have to have a drink with the boys to then sign off a deal. I have clients like that. And so they have to try and like find ways to be sneaky and pretend they're drinking, but also not lie, because then the boys won't give them the job. There's all sorts of cultures and identities surrounding food. So you want to identify that as well and see if that is getting in the way. Because sometimes people are struggling to make changes with their food because they're struggling not to be judged by the people around them. And you've got to learn how to say no. You've got to learn how to say no to other people, not necessarily to shut them off, but to open yourself up, to say yes to yourself. And if people get upset by that, yeah, whatever, that's their own journey. Nutrition and aesthetics, body composition, skin, hair, nails, eyes, bloating and water retention, muscle definition, and confidence boost. We all know aesthetics, right? It's how we look, and so it's the body fat percentage, the muscle mass. Food determines how much lean muscle mass we could hold. If we're not eating enough protein or calories, energy, then our body won't be able to actually sustain lean muscle mass, because it takes a lot of energy, right? Like lean muscle mass is an energetic sort of tissue, where fat, much easier to sustain. The body wants to hold on to that for long term. And so we want to feed it enough so then we could the fat's lazy. It's like, oh, I could do this all day, you know? This is so good, yeah. And so what we want to do is feed the muscle and move away from that sort of mentality within the body. And that just takes time and momentum. So do skin, hair, nails, eyes. I would say eyes as well, because like if we have a leaky gut, so we eat bad food, that does show up in the eyes. So has anyone seen is it called an iridologist? Is that what it is? And they look at the iris and they look at the eye to see whether you have leaky gut or certain issues with organs and what have you. So it shows up in the eye, how bright it is or how consistent your eye color is, even your eyesight. So you have certain foods, certain micronutrients, like we all know carrots help with eyesight, for instance. So all those things matter. And that's why I try and eat well, or why we try and eat well, just because, I don't know, for us, we only have this one life. And I think it's a bit of a shame not to actually try and experience life to my fullest as a human being, like as a vessel. If that makes sense. I want to be able to see and taste and smell and hear and feel as well as I can anyway, you know, to our own limit, because everyone is different, right? And food is big for that. Confidence boost as well, muscle definition. Who here wants to look real sexy in the mirror and feel good about it? Yeah, we all do, right? We want to be like, fuck yeah, let's do this. I know what we're doing, but I don't want to go into that. Yeah, too far. What is nutrition? So calories, macronutrients, micronutrients, and hydration. Who knows what the 3 macronutrients are? Okay. Yeah, perfect. I knew you knew it, Flynn. I'm not going to ask you. Micronutrients are your fat-soluble or water-soluble micronutrient vitamins or minerals, right? We'll dive into them. And your hydration being not just your water, but your electrolytes. Who knows all the electrolytes? Okay, there's quite a few. I think I can name them off the top of my head, but I'm not going to bother. You know, I don't want. So calories. Calories is purely just the way that we track the energy of food. It's not just to food. So you guys use calories to track the energy of coal, the heat of coal, and other things. But however, we're talking about food. So calories, just look at it as energy. I don't know if oh yeah, I do. So if you're in a maintenance, right, let's say you're burning on a day-to-day basis 2,000 calories, you eat 2,000 calories, you're pretty much going to stay the same. The amount of calories that you burn is dependent on the amount of exercise that you do. Also, well, everyone was here for last week mostly anyway. Yeah, so dived into how your base metabolic rate is your age, sex, lean muscle mass, hormones, etc. Like 70% of your metabolism determined by all of that. That could be changed by what we're talking about. Training, eating can improve lean muscle mass, which can improve metabolism, etc. So let's say if your metabolism at 2,000 a day, you eat 2,000, you're going to maintain. Eat under 2,000, you're going to drop weight. Over 2,000, you're going to gain weight. Pretty simple. However, like a lot of people say, it's not just as simple as calories in, calories out. Where it's not as simple is what determines your metabolism, which is where certain foods, a certain lifestyle, certain habits could then impact your metabolism, if that makes sense. So you're not just a victim to your metabolism. I'm going to try not to show a nipple, guys. I don't know what's happening here. Calorie balance, energy balance determines whether you gain or lose weight. So to give context, it takes 3,500 calories a week to lose half a kilogram of fat. So half a kilogram of fat is about 3,500 calories of energy. That makes sense? So if we're trying to lose half a kilo a week, we want to be at about 700 calories a day loss. That make sense for everyone? Then you could choose how you eat or the exercise that you do that determines that. However, we don't want to undereat, we don't want to force it too much because then you could have the adverse effect. It's a tricky line, but that's what we're here for. And that's why you want to look after your hormones and your gut health, because your hormones are going to determine your metabolism. Your gut health is going to determine how bioavailable and how you break down food and how you feel. And sleep and stress also affects muscle recovery and weight loss. Sleep is paramount to recovery, and then also with that recovery and how your nervous system recovers, how your metabolism is then going to work the next day. Your sleep is going to determine a lot about your heart rate variability, so the variability between your heart rate, your base metabolic rate, your heart rate in general, and that's going to be metabolism. So sleep is extremely important as well. Macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats. So protein is king. Protein's the top dog. It's 4 calories per gram. However, I think I talked about this in the last workshop. The body takes more thermic effect to break down protein. So I think it's something like 70% of the protein gets broken down much more effectively in the body, where carbs are something like 30% and fats are like 3%, which is why people like demonize fat, because it's 9 calories, 9 points of energy per gram of fat, plus it doesn't use much energy to break down the fat. That makes sense. And so protein's king because of that effect. Also, it's the top dog for growth, tissue repair, immune function, making essential hormones and enzymes, energy when carbohydrates aren't available, and preserving lean muscle mass. There's only 2 ways to create protein synthesis, which is the growth and the recovery of muscle. One is resistance training, exercise, and the other one is eating protein. Put them 2 together, and then you're going to have lean muscle mass that is going to develop, recover, and then become better. And that's how metabolism will increase, we lose fat, we look sexy in the bedroom, and then you can do whatever you want, no judgment. The amount of protein you want to eat day to day is 2 grams per kilogram of body weight is the goal. Ideally, your goal, right? So like if you're 100 kilos, but your goal is to be 90 kilograms, you want to have 180 grams of protein, ideally. And so you can see being a guy, being heavier, it's much more protein and food to eat. For women, it's the same case, but normally women are going to be lighter than men. So if you're like 70 kilos, you're going to have 140 grams if 70 kilos is your goal. Ideally, you want to be 1.5 minimum. So if you're 70 kilograms, 100 grams minimum, upwards of 140. Some people even say 2.2 times your body weight. Yeah, but in most cases, that's for people that are training more often. You could go up towards that 2.2, 2.5 times. Some athletes even up to 3 times, depending on how much they're training. Because that's how important protein can be for muscle recovery and repair as well. For most of you guys, 1.5 to 2 times your body weight of your goal in protein is king. Cool. Yep. Your fats, about 30% of your daily intake, very important for normal growth and development, energy, absorbing certain fat vitamins, which are your A, your D, your E, and your K, and providing cushioning for the organs. So now we're just diving into fat in general and maintaining cell membranes. So fat's important, a good balance of fats are important, and your carbohydrates. What time are we at, Josh?
We're at 19 minutes.
In?
Yeah.
Cool, smashing it. I'm not talking too fast, guys. Oof. I'm like, I don't want to get too hot in this one. I'll just go at it, hey. Like Ali, our hairdresser, our barber. Carbohydrates, that's the remainder of your calories, right? So if you've got 2 times your body weight in protein, then go for about 30% of your calories in fat. Then the remainder of the calories will be in carbs. Carbs are important for you. It's your body's main source of fuel, so your brain's main source of fuel. Your body can use fat when it goes into ketosis, and it could use that for energy. However, the process of that is so challenging to even get into and to maintain. So for most of us, I think it's important to have carbohydrates, unless you're going to go on some sort of like elimination protocol for a short period of time, where it could be beneficial to actually eliminate carbs to explore insulin sensitivity, and then also maybe improving the gut. However, I would say that's maybe a short burst of time you would do that, and most of the time you just have a healthy balance of carbohydrates, preferably around training or energy, like or balanced meals, and that will work out well, which Josh will dive into. It's easily used by the body for energy. All tissues and cells in our body can use glucose, the smallest form of carbohydrate, for energy. So glucose, sucrose, fructose, fruit, glucose, and sucrose are like the makeup for everything else in most cases. That always turns into glycogen in the body, which is the energy source. Most things turn into that anyway. Needed for the central nervous system, the kidneys, brain, muscles to function properly, and could be stored in the muscles and liver later for energy. When it turns into glycogen, the body stores onto it. So then you could use it for training purposes or what have you. So if you're going to train for a sport, if you're an athlete, you would eat a lot of carbs in the lead up to a competition, because now you're loading up on glycogen. So then you could use that during your actual training. Make sense? Most of us don't need to do that though. Unless you're going to do some random little marathon or some sort of competition, it could be beneficial to do that. And then important in intestinal health and waste elimination, which is where fiber comes into play. So most of your carb sources, your legumes, your starchy vegetables, your fruits, your just vegetables in general, have certain soluble and insoluble fiber, which is then going to help make up and move through your shits. I'm trying to think of a nicer word, but shit just came out. Fat, protein, and carbs. So to the far left is your fats. Your fruit, avocado, is a fat. Your oils, your nuts, your peanut butter, your seeds, and your flax seeds. Then you also have your mix up of your protein and the fat. So where that overlap is your eggs, for example. If you're having the yolk and the egg white, then you're having 6 grams of fat and 6 grams of protein with that as well, which is why eggs are fantastic. Same thing for oily fish. You could even have like more fattier beef or ruminant meat like a lamb, beef and lamb. You can get some nice fats in as well. Anyone here doesn't eat meat? Fish? Oh, perfect. Do you eat eggs or?
So I eat.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, great. So fish and eggs are fantastic, good protein source and fats. But that's also why meat in general, or animal proteins, just the top dogs, right? Fish and eggs are great because you have great amino acids, the complete makeup of amino acids for recovery and what have you. So it's good that we all eat meat. No, I have vegan and vegetarian clients. It's just a lot of supplementation and moving it through. You just have to be a lot more intentional with it, and a lot of supplementation. But if you eat meat, and you eat meat regularly, and you're comfortable, well, expose yourself to having fish, having eggs, having fatty meats, you'll be way better off. Chicken's not bad, but it's just super lean, doesn't have as many nutrients. It's kind of like, well, when you look at a chicken, you don't think it's very useful, right? Besides eggs and, you know what I mean? But when you look like a cow, for instance, that's 4 different stomachs, and then the way that it breaks down food, and then that comes out into the beef is going to be much more beneficial nutrient-wise than something like chicken. I'm not saying don't have chicken, it's just a far leaner meat that doesn't provide as many nutrients. So much more for fish, beef, lamb. You can even go like a real lean sort of kangaroo, but it's more lean. Don't be scared of your fats. Eggs as well, especially for women, because it helps with your hormones. Fats are extremely important for hormones. So a lot of women that undereat in fat can have a lot of issues, especially with their cycle as well. Moving into the middle of protein, that's all your lean meats, your chicken, fish, egg whites, tofu, low-fat Greek yogurt, and your low-fat cottage cheese. I would also put in there like protein supplements as well. And then you have the carbohydrates between the protein and your carbs. So you can see how the vegans, vegetarians will eat a lot of beans, lentils, legumes, quinoa, tempeh? Yeah. That sounds like a song. Skim milk and grains. So you can see also how there's so many carbs in a vegan, vegetarian diet. There's so many carbs, and because they're trying to get a lot, if they're not supplementing, they're trying to get all their protein through these mix of carbs and protein. There's also just a lot of stress on the intestines and the gut, which is why unfortunately a lot of vegans, vegetarians have intestinal issues, bloating and gut issues as well. Very common, whether they want to admit it or not. Eventually they do. What is micronutrients? I know it's technically meant to be water, but I was trying to be cool like a show. What is? But I don't know. You got your organic vitamins, you got your fat ones, your A, D, E, K, and your water ones, which is your B's and your C's, which is why if you have a lot of C vitamins or B vitamins, they just kind of wash out of the body, because water, it just kind of flushes out with the water. Where your fat soluble ones, your A, your D, and your K, will sustain and hold within the body within the fat, which is why it's also important to eat food with those vitamins. So if you're having your B's and your C's, most cases you can just have it without any food. If you're having your A, D, and your E, and your K, you'll find that they recommend that you eat it with food. And that's why, because you need fat to also help with the digestion of it. Otherwise, if you have those vitamins without food on it, your body, like someone's probably done that before, I've done it, and it just makes your gut real icky because it's trying to break that down like it's fat as well without fat. It's just not sustaining enough within the body. Then also got your inorganic minerals like your electrolytes, your iron, your zinc. These are ones that don't necessarily break down as easily. And then you got your energy, your immunity, bone, and this is what it helps with. I'm like, what the hell? They're not micronutrients. What they help with is your energy, your immunity, your bones, your hormones. It helps with fatigue, poor recovery, and long-term health issues. So we could dive into calories, right? And you could get all your calories and macros from certain foods, but if they're not also meeting the micronutrients that are important for you, then there could be other repercussions, right? If you're lacking in vitamin D, etc. And I'll dive into that in a second. This is where blood tests could be useful. You get a blood test, and you could actually get a profile to see where you might be deficient in. But in most cases, it is beneficial to supplement with some of these, mostly year round, besides maybe cycling off a little bit, which I'll dive into soon. Hydration, water, and electrolyte balance. It's not just having water within the body, but it's also the body's ability intracellularly and extracellularly to absorb the water and to be hydrated. And this is where electrolytes come into play. Because you can have a lot of water, but if you don't have the right electrolytes within the body, it's not going to sustain it and it'll just flush it out. So you want to make sure you're also having the right electrolyte balance, which we'll dive into. It helps a lot with energy, focus, performance, digestion, and recovery. On the digestive aspect, if you're having food, fiber, with no water, it's not going to help make up the stool and make it smooth enough to go out the body as well. Another reason why it's important. Caffeine is a diuretic as well, so that can help just push it out, but we want the stools and the gut to be able to digest correctly with the right balance to then create the right stools to then move through. Otherwise, stuff like caffeine or diuretics without that balance could just push food out without actually breaking down the food and having that bioavailability of food. That's the downfall of it. Also why it's important to ideally have water, food, before having caffeine. So ideally you would actually put something within the gut before then adding a diuretic on it, ideally. Even 1 to 2% loss of body water can impair physical and mental performance, which isn't a whole lot. The recommendation is 30 to 40 mils of water per kilogram of body weight. So say if you're 70 kilograms, 2.1 liters. If you're 80 kilograms, 2.4. If you're 90, 2.7, 100, 3. Who here drinks enough water? Cool. That's great. Then, depending on the amount of exercise that you're doing, you want to add extra water on top of that. So if you do off of the baseline of 30 milliliters per kilogram of body weight, then if you were to do an hour of exercise, depending on how strenuous it is, it could be anywhere from 500 mils to a liter of water for that hour of exercise. So if you have athletes that are doing like ultra marathons or marathons and what have you, the amount of water that they have to drink and the amount of sugar they have to put in their body is absurd. And we talked about that in one of our podcasts about what it takes to be an athlete and the amount of sugar and caffeine and water and the stuff that you put in your body to be able to sustain an insane output. Which is also why, just to give context, being an athlete isn't healthy and fit necessarily, right? Like being an athlete is putting your body into the most stressful position that you can for it to perform at its best level. So what we're talking about here is to get your cells to the best position, homeostasis within the body, so then everything's nice and settled, so then you can live on and do your best thing in life. Then if you want to go become an athlete, you could add that stress on. That makes sense? Spread intake throughout the day. Don't rely on thirst alone as a signal, because sometimes our signal could be a little bit broken. And front loading at the start of the day is important. Try and front load. When you wake up, have a glass of water or two and start in your first quarter of the day. Make that the most important for getting water in. Try and start strong. The nutrition pyramid. So the very bottom, your energy balance, your behavior and lifestyle. So the reason why energy balance is at the bottom is because if we go into like just the calorie aspect of it without the behavior and lifestyle, and we just keep trying to drop calories, that's like we were talking about before, we're going to start malnourishing ourselves or not getting the nutrients, etc. that we need. So we want to make sure that we are in a healthy lifestyle. We have the right behaviors, so our energy levels are high, our hormones are high, our lean muscle is good. We're in a fat burning process, and then we fuel the body for that as well with the right nutrients. Then we move into macronutrients, micronutrients, nutrient timing, and supplements at the very end. Supplements are at the top. However, I'm going to dive into supplements now. And then Josh is going to dive into how to integrate all this into your lives. Dive into supplements because it's probably one of the most common questions: what supplements to have, what supplements not to have. Do you need something, Josh?
Show this up so we've got.
Oh, cool. What supplements not to have, where to buy from, etc. So I've written everything in here for you. From top to bottom is the recommendation we will put in as supplements, like from most important to least important. Protein at the very top. Malnourishment is probably the thing you want the least. The first thing that you could ever do is just fuel your body with the right amount of macronutrients. That's the very first thing that you could do. Get the right amount of protein, the right amount of fats and carbs to fuel your day-to-day life. Base number one. If you're trying to add micronutrients on top of that, but you're malnourished from total caloric intake, you're not getting the right macronutrients, good luck with those vitamins and minerals, right? It's not good. Vitamins and minerals aren't going to give you the energy that your body needs to sustain performance, hormones, metabolism, etc. So that's king. Protein supplements, because most people, including us, but we eat an absurd amount of protein, but it's important for what we're trying to achieve, right, in our own physical bodies. And it's just too hard to get most of it from actual organic real food. Although we eat a lot of organic real food, having like a scoop of protein and a protein bar a day adds a whole another 50 grams of protein into our day, 50 to 60 grams of protein. Woo! And if we're eating anywhere from 100 to 150 grams of protein from meat itself, which is awesome, we're looking at 150 to 200 grams of protein a day, which I think you're probably around that as well.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I try and hit like 180, 200.
Yeah. But we're trying to like hit larger limits, right? Next one is these are your foundational ones. So I recommend to everyone. They're super cheap, easy to get, and best bang for your buck is your vitamin D3, your fish oil, your omega-3s, your magnesium, and your creatine. Every single person I work with recommend these two. These are extremely important, foundational for many reasons. We'll dive into that. Your next one is like an adaptogenic herb blend. So instead of your magnesium, you could get like an adaptogenic herb blend which also has magnesium in it, but will also have other adaptogenic herbs that will help in relaxing the nervous system, which is the purpose of magnesium. She's like, yeah, give me that. I want to sleep. Yeah. I want to feel good. Who here remembers, I don't know if you guys still have it, you remember when you're a kid or you're a teenager and you wake up and you have that stretch and you're like, oh, it's the best stretch in the world? Has anyone had that recently? Good. Oh man, I'm so jealous. I feel like I haven't had that in a good amount of time. Hey, anyway, that's just my stress. Sleep before adrenals. The reason why I share that is a lot of the adrenal and the sleep mixes will tend to have a similar blend. And sleep is extremely important. So if you could get a sleep blend and have that before bed over an adrenal one, I'll put that as number one. I personally have sleep and adrenal every single day.
I also do.
But I spend like $400 a week on food and supplements, but that's my own choice. Don't need to spend that much, but we just choose to do so. I'll put the sleep one first. Magnesium is the cheapest, right? You can find a good magnesium blend, and I'll dive into that in a second, and you could buy that from a chemist or what have you, and it'll be cheaper. The sleep one, however, I would definitely recommend even over that magnesium. Like I would just invest, it's probably only like a couple more dollars per serving, so it's not going to be a whole lot of difference. But the sleep one has a blend of herbs. It will have magnesium with other things in it. But if money is really an issue or a challenge, a straight magnesium will work just fine. However, I love sleep to death, and I'll keep saying that. Number fourth, I'll probably put collagen, the skin, hair, connective tissue, things that you just won't get from other foods. Even if you eat meat, you're not actually getting the nails or the connective tissue from it, right? Where collagen is a mix of three different, so you get like type 1, which is everything, your skin, your connective tissue, etc., which is more your tensile strength. Number 2 is more so the cartilage aspect, so give you ideas, type 1, type 2, type 3 of collagen, and type 3 is the elasticity aspect of it within type 1, so it's like slight separation between type 1 and type 3. Does that make sense? This one here is one of the only few you could find that has all 3 in it. So ideally you'll find a collagen with all 3. It's not the only brand, but we have it and it's fantastic. I take it every day now. The next one will be greens powder. If you're regularly eating seasonal fruit and veg, that can be enough anyway. However, our soil's a little bit poor and it's pretty hard to get all of it through that. So I will probably put greens powder as number 5. Do you have a greens powder? Do you take Vitality? Or? Yeah. I personally take Vitality as well. I've been taking greens for ever now, so I'm kind of like attached to the supplement in a way. And I personally like it alongside like a gut supplementation as well. ATP Gut Right is probably the one that we recommend the most. And if you're going to do something like that, you can maybe just add it in day to day, or you could go on something like an elimination gut recovery protocol, where you'll go on something like a FODMAP. So everyone know what a FODMAP is? So FODMAP is certain foods that are just more stressful in the gut. Like it goes to the intestines or large intestine, and then it can inflame it and stress it. So when you go on something like a elimination protocol, it's either FODMAP where you remove certain foods where it's a large intestine, how you have to break it down, it becomes stressful in the large intestine, or you just eliminate altogether and go on like a ketosis or a carnivore, we're just not having any sugars go through the large intestine at all. And then you could have a gut right supplement, and then that's gonna flush through the gut and the intestines and just literally flush it through. It's pretty intense sometimes, because you're having this you have to take it like 3 times a day, and it's pretty much just like drinking dirt. However, it works fantastic.
With honey. Dirt with honey.
Dirt with honey. And you have it, and then by the end of the protocol, you feel fantastic. However, it's pretty intense.
Only if your gut's bad.
Yeah, only if your gut's bad. Yeah.
If your gut's right, it's okay.
Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, fuck. All the caffeine. Electrolytes is the last one. So the electrolytes here, I put it last because most of us aren't sweating enough, and if you're having a good balanced diet, you're probably getting the right amount of electrolytes anyway. I would say this is more like it's certainly marketed more gimmicky in that everyone needs to take an electrolyte. I don't think it's necessary. However, you could add in like your own potassium and magnesium powders to your water, and you can start playing around with making your electrolytes, or you could use this if you are finding yourself getting a little bit crampy or a little bit dehydrated. You could explore it. Your electrolytes are magnesium, calcium, potassium, sodium, chloride, phosphate, and bicarbonate. The things naturally that will help all these electrolytes are like your salts, your fruits, your potatoes with skin, leafy greens, nuts and seeds, your dairy, meats, eggs, and legumes. You're not necessarily eating bicarbonate. Bicarbonate is created internally within the body, but then it's determined by the balance of everything, and the pH level of the gut determines your bicarbonate within the body and your electrolyte. That makes sense? So it's another reason why it's so important to have such a healthy balance of pH in the gut of food. If you eat organically mostly and you eat good food, you will have a balanced pH. It's normally when you're having, drinks are probably the biggest one, right? You're having carbonated drinks, you're having all these sugars and what have you, it's just going to impact the pH level. Imagine having Coke. Yeah, it makes sense, right? Coke is like something you'll clean an engine with. Obviously, that's going to impact your pH level of your gut. Caffeine's one as well, actually. So caffeine, diuretic, could also impact that. And we have the switch hydrate as a recommendation as well. So I'll give you the slider so you could actually see all of this, so you could just check in. Diving into protein bars. I use the Holistic Sister, Eliza. This is actually from her page. I did add the cold press under her bars. I don't know if she would recommend it or not, but
She does.
She does? Yeah, cool, Eliza. So she lives over east now, right? But she was a Perth girl. Josh knows her well, but she's a naturopath and she's fantastic at what she does.
Nutritionist.
Nutritionist?
Nutritionist.
And she's done naturopathy, right?
Yeah, of course. She had a bit of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, nutritionist.
I'm a naturopath.
She doesn't want to be in naturopathy. I don't know, what is it? The protein bars she recommends, so the Chief Collagen. I loved also the Switch bars. However, there's a cross-contamination. It seems like they might not even be able to bring it back onto the market. It seems like it's just a lot of work with the TJA to get it back. I don't know. Which sucks because they're awesome. The Chief Collagen bars are fantastic. You've got the True Protein bars are really good as well. Blue Dinosaur I've had. And the cold press fiber boost ones are fantastic. They're the ones that Josh and I eat most. At the moment, Josh has been eating for ages, and you could buy most of those bars from like any nutrition store, mostly. We will eventually get to the point where we'll become wholesale for the Chief Collagen and the Cold Press, because they're our two favorite, and we'd like to become wholesalers so we could actually provide it. And the bars that we wouldn't recommend are those like super high, like look at the ingredients, there's lots of milk solids in them, so there's lots of milk and gluten and sweeteners and sugar and shit like that, and you're probably gonna shit yourself. So we wanna try and stay from those as much as possible. The Carmen's protein bars, a lot of that is just like nuts and what have you. It's just not worth it. There's not much protein in it. It's just not worth it as a bar anyway. And she wrote down here, these include poor quality and inflammatory ingredients like seed oils, artificial sweeteners, etc. And the balance of the bars are just out of whack. Where on the left, you're going to tend to have a high protein content in relation to the fat and carbs in it as well. So you're not getting all the crap while trying to get your protein in. So these are the ones that we recommend. Protein powders. So you've got your two main ones, your whey protein or hydrolyzed protein and your plant protein. Whey protein is a byproduct of dairy, so it can upset certain stomachs. Some people have whey protein that is fine, that doesn't sit well with their stomach. So if that's the case, you can maybe shift into like a plant protein. It's a little bit more of a grainy flavor as you would expect from plant protein. It's normally like rice, pea, hemp, the normal ingredients. And it could be a little less aggressive on certain stomachs, and it tends to have more digestive enzymes and products within it that help with digestion. So when you're getting a whey protein, aim for something with a natural sweetener like a stevia. Try and stay away from all the other crap. What's up, deal? And then also look for something that has an inclusion of digestive enzymes. So prebiotics, probiotics, etc. in it as well to help with digestion during that process. Brands that we recommend is your Switch Nutrition, which are the ones that we have over here. We've got the whey protein and the plant protein. We also have supplements if everyone wants to try it. We also recommend bulk nutrients. They've been around for ages. Most of the time you had to buy it online. They're super cheap. You could order it online. And they're just super basic. Like, that's the whole point of bulk nutrients. It's like they make their own supplements. It's extremely basic with basic ingredients. It doesn't have any of the fluff. And straight to your door. A really good brand. They've been around forever. True Protein, a little bit more expensive, but their ingredients are top notch. They're probably like top notch ingredient brand. I would say Switch is secondary with bulk being the lowest, but bulk being the cheapest. True being the most expensive. We use Switch because they have the best ingredients and they're at a decent price range, which is why we choose them. Or we used to use ATP Science, which is like a naturopath group as well, and they're a very similar group. Any questions in regards to that? Cool. Then, all right, so now done with the foundational supplements. People are like, okay, well, what vitamin D do I take and how much? So vitamin D helps with bone health, immunity, and calcium balance. Your typical maintenance dose for adults is 1 to 2,000 IU a day. Those vitamin D3 come in like tiny, tiny capsules. We've all seen what vitamin D3 looks like. Yeah, super, super tiny. Oh, sweet. And they're little ones?
Yeah, they are, yeah. This is vitamin D and K2, which is actually what Eliza told me to get onto.
Most of them do have a blend now. Oh, nice.
Because there's, I don't know what K2 looks like, but...
That's what makes it bigger.
So vitamin K being another fat soluble, so we've got 2 fat soluble there. Ideally you would have that with food, already have fat in your gut as well.
I think the K2 helps bind the...
Vitamin D. Yeah. Same thing as like, you want vitamin C with collagen, which is in that as well. It just helps bind in the absorption within the body. So that's the K and the D work together in that manner. You want to focus on about 1,000 to 2,000 IU a day. So 1 to 2 little capsules a day. I personally have 5,000 a day. I go up in the upper end and you can do that as well. There was something like Charles Poliquin, who was the #1 strength coach in the world. He had his people taking like 10,000 to 15,000 a day, which is crazy. But you gotta do what you gotta do. Your fish oil is your omega-3. And I wrote EPA, DHA here because the point of the omega-3 is to get the EPA and DHA. So this is what helps with the anti-inflammation, it helps with the brain function, etc. And so it helps reduce inflammation, cardiovascular, and brain health. You're aiming for 1 to 2 grams of combined EPA, DHA a day. That's the goal. So a weaker omega-3, and you'll see it on the back, will have something like 30%. So we'll have a mix-up of EPA, DHA at 300. That makes sense. So EPA will be 120, DHA will be 180, total of 300 milligrams for that whole 1,000 milligram of fish oil. Make sense? So 30% of that omega-3 is the EPA, DHA. What we want to do, you could tell by the quality of it, is it's going to be 50% or higher. So really high quality, expensive ones will be more in the 70 to 80% range, where you'll get like 700 to 800 EPA DHA for omega-3. They're more expensive. You could probably just go for something that's like 500 milligrams of EPA DHA combined per 1 gram of omega-3, and you just have to take about 2 a day. I personally take 4 because I go for the 2 grams of EPA DHA, but the baseline of 1 gram a day is perfect. So if you're buying a fish oil or omega-3, or if you already have one, take a look at the back, look at the total EPA DHA combined, and they'll give you context to how high quality of your omega-3 is. Your magnesium, involved in hundreds of biochemical reactions, your nerves, muscles, ATP being your, I think it's like adenosine triphosphate, I can't remember the term or whatever it's called. But that's your energy, right? So it's your initial energy within the cell. We want to be having about 200 to 350 milligrams of magnesium glycinate, which is the one that helps with sleep. So if you're going to just focus on a magnesium, you want to get the glycinate before bed. Something like the Switch sleep powder has a different one, but it has other compounds that will help with sleep as well. So it's like, I think it's magnesium citrate, I think is in the sleep one. And then it has other products in it that will help produce the same result because it's a blend. But if you're going to buy just a pure magnesium for sleep, a glycinate is what you're aiming for. You could buy them from any pharmaceutical, same thing as the fish oil, vitamin D. Then your creatine, everyone knows what creatine is. Who takes it? Fantastic. It's the most studied product in the world, even over protein. Creatine's the most studied. It enhances strength, muscle mass, energy, and high intensity exercise. Also memory, attention, and help mitigating cognitive decline. So creatine and fish oil are actually 2 really highly studied products now in brain health, depression, anxiety, because I've realized the impacts it has on cognition. Also realizing depression and anxiety has a lot to do with the stress and inflammation within the body. So if we have certain inflammatory markers, cytokines within the body, that is also highly linked to depression and anxiety. And so a lot of these products like creatine and fish oil could help with that. And you take 5 grams a day, I think it's like 30 cents or something per serving. So it's super cheap, super easy. You don't need to load it, you just have it daily. You can load it, some people will load it and they'll play around with that for training, or even, there's like studies of if you were to go out on a big night and get lack of sleep, if you were to load up to 15 grams to 20 grams, that could also help with the recovery of the brain and the nervous system to then mitigate what you just experienced by drinking or having a big night out. It's not going to completely fix it, right? It'll help a little bit with the hangover. But creatine's great, super cheap. It's like 30 cents a serving. You take 1 scoop a day, done. Honestly, any brand works. They're all cheap. We sell the Zombie Labs one here, but any creatine monohydrate is what you're aiming for. Cool. Josh is up next. Any questions for me?